Welcome, everybody. This is Chuck Cook here for Impact Litigation. We got the ever handsome Greg Siskin and Jeff Joseph. I want you to know on this call, I have the most hair. I'm just saying. It doesn't happen often, but on this call,
it has something to do with lack of testosterone.
Is that what it is? That's why I have all this hair? It's great to see you guys. It was kind of an eventful week last week, and even today. Last week, for those of you who don't know, was the annual conference of the American Immigration Lawyers Association. Jeff is the incoming national treasurer of AILA, and it is pretty routine, certainly during the pre-Trump years, that during the annual conference of the Immigration Lawyers Association, there is some big announcement. It's when DACA, remember in 2012, DACA came. Nobody believed that, couldn't possibly. DACA's coming down. In fact, it was Ali Mayorkas, who is now the Secretary of Homeland Security, who was scheduled to speak in our Nashville conference, who called the night before and said, I can't come. We have a big announcement. He was going to be the keynote speaker.
Yep.
A big announcement on Thursday morning. I can't be there. And that's when President Biden and
we don't have a USCIS director, so there's nobody in that agency to make an announcement like that.
Yeah, there's nobody could do it. So, and I have to tell you, the highlight of the conference, besides each of our talks, which were really good, by the way, we were all awesome. I know they're not public. I'm sorry. But trust me, they were great. I spoke on litigation. Jeff, did you speak on litigation?
Let me tell you my story. I was on the Hot Topics panel, and I was supposed to give a brief on every case, why AILA got involved, who the partners were on the litigation, and my computer crashed about 15 more minutes before the presentation. And so I had to relog on to Kirby's computer. So I was about this big. Everybody else was like our size. I was about this big on the screen. I was
wondering what's going on.
Puny person. And I had no notes, so I had to completely wing my presentation.
And as I recall, you were last, so you had the least amount of time
squeezed
in the conference.
They
I was put down 10 minutes, and I had 4.
They don't trust me with the substantive topics. I get like management stuff. I was speaking on like social media.
But Greg spoke 3 times, and for those of you who don't know, Greg just released the Immigration Cookbook, which would be cool if I wrote it, but it's just as cool if Greg wrote it. For immigration.
And Ari Sauer.
Yeah, Ari Sauer, you're a great lawyer that works with you. Terrific book's going to be an international bestseller. It's 2 volumes, by the way.
There will be at least
if it sells based on the weight, we're going to make a lot of money.
Yeah, I think if you really had trouble sleeping at night, you should buy this book.
Makes for a good step stool.
Knocked out right away. But we had a great time, and we had some great news. The best conference session was the Secretary of Homeland Security being grilled by the executive director of the American Immigration Lawyers Association. I can't imagine any other secretary, cabinet level secretary, subjecting themselves to a
give the guy some credit.
Oh, kudos to Ali Mayorkas. And he stood up for himself. He contested.
He's the first immigrant in that job.
Yeah, but I got to tell you, kudos to Ali Mayorkas for having the huevos to get up there and do that. That was good. And he released some excellent news. Now, this doesn't really impact, Secretary Blinken wasn't there because I don't think he's got the cojones to show up at an AILA conference and be cross-examined. I think secretaries of state think of themselves as too important to show up at an event like that. Although his staffers did show up and said nothing. We'll tell you what they said in a minute. But Ali announced that they're gonna start calling people if they have questions about their case. Hey, you didn't submit this. The kind of things that normal people would do instead of saying
that for me was the most encouraging vibe that I got. It's not anything one specific thing, but there was a collection of pieces of information we were getting that seems to look like they're taking it seriously as far as trying to move to a better customer service environment overall and fixing a lot of the problems that they're having with with processing times. And we got that, we picked up that at Department of Labor's open forum and others as well. So I am in the midterm and long term, I'm optimistic we might not have to sue quite as often, which would be great.
Yeah, that would be good.
The near term, I think they still need our encouragement.
Well, big piece of news today from immigration was they're going to start giving out employment cards to people on U visas who have bona fide cases rather than waiting 5 years for an adjudication, which in and of itself is illegal.
Which was also going to be one of our litigation priorities for
Yeah, we were going to sue on that. Now they're just caving. So great.
I mean, we'd be happy to not have to sue on an issue if they take if they take the right steps. I'm a little concerned at how they're actually going to accomplish issuing these things these cards in less than 5 years based on their performance in other areas. So that's going to be something that we're going to have to watch closely. But it's obviously good news.
You know, they have 170,000 pending U visa cases. So
yeah, it's cool.
I don't know how many people it takes to go through that in a few weeks, but probably more than they have working for them. Plus, I don't know if you found this out, but the Vermont Service Center is moving or has moved from St. Albans all the way down the road to Essex Junction because St. Albans was getting overcrowded. So they went to Essex Junction, which, by the way, is where the airport is if you're floating to Burlington, Vermont.
Did they give,
I just found this out.
10 days notice?
I just got an email about it. So
yeah, I'm one of the officers of AILA, and I found out about 4 minutes ago that they've moved. Thank goodness we don't file there very much.
That would have been a good thing. And that's what the U visas are. So that'd be kind of fun. But let's get into it here. Let me pull up a couple banners. We want to talk about some stuff here. I want to lead off about our lottery abuse case, the #1 case, because we're drafting that right now. We have the complaint about the first draft at about 85% done. I should have it tomorrow to my colleagues here to take a look at. But this is where we're bringing a lawsuit against the Immigration Service for how they ran the H-1B lottery this year, particularly because there is a massive increase, a 35% increase in lottery submissions this year. And it appears to be because there was a lot of people submitting multiple applications for multiple employers who might not have been legitimate employers. I'm just saying, might not have been, might not be real jobs. It might be just placeholders, which I think certainly violates the intent of the rule that allowed the submission of applications by multiple employers, but appears to violate the statute as well. So we have got, I think, 400 people signed up for that. The plan is we're doing everything possible to drop it by Friday. That's our goal, to drop this by Friday. So just know we're there. And then we will be preparing, we kind of did at the same time, but we'll be preparing a preliminary injunction shortly thereafter to get the judge's attention. So that's our H-1B lottery case.
I think the deadline on that is tomorrow.
Tomorrow?
Case.
Yeah, we have enough plaintiffs. Whoever signs up, put them in up.
We have enough plaintiffs to file, but I'm just letting people know if they want to be in the case. Tomorrow is the deadline. You
can still jump in and do that. And by the way, you can do that by going this. Jeff has a similar page. I have a similar page. I just happen to have Greg's up.
They just mirror each other.
They just are all the same pages. So we got that's the H-1B lottery case. I do want to bring up Jeff. This is for you, the Kinsley case, because it's important. We're actually there. Tell us about it. Jeff, you're muted.
Yes. So last week we filed a motion for a preliminary injunction and/or summary judgment with the court, and then also simultaneously with that the government filed the administrative record, which is nothing surprising. It's a lot of the evidence that we've seen in our other case, like the Go case and in some of the mandamus cases. So nothing surprising in the administrative record. And they are now going to respond to our motion. And we will have a final hearing on this, final judgment. Well, not final judgment, but all briefing on judgment by July 16th. So we should have an answer on Kinsley shortly after July 16th, as soon as the judge renders a decision. And let's hope that is like the ding dong, the witch is dead for the proclamation now and forever for everyone.
And they're
so the judge is probably likely to do this in writing. I guess the judge could ask for a hearing, but he's probably not going to, since he's already heard all this stuff before.
Yeah, this is nothing new for the judge. He's heard all this stuff already, the preliminary injunction. So nothing's changed. I think actually he may be quite pissed off to learn that the government has kept doing it after its preliminary injunction. So
let me say one more thing that Zach New from my office is the associate attorney in my office that drafted this brief. And in my opinion, this is just my opinion, but it's the best work product our office has ever produced on anything.
It's exceptional.
It was like cutting by a million cuts this brief.
And in fact, I recently made a job offer to Zach to join me here. Really terrific work. Kudos to Zach because it's really, really excellent work. It's so much easier to edit and review stuff that's just basically perfect.
Yeah.
And plus, the great news is we had the administrative record previously, so we knew everything that they've been saying. And we want to thank all of our listeners because you have sent us remarkable stuff. Emails from random consulates saying crazy butt stuff. Videos. I mean, literally videos. I cannot believe the consular officers go on video and say the stuff they say about this stuff. Just got another one today from Algeria.
Oh, yeah, that was a good one.
That was great. Yeah, we're not going to work on these. So sorry, good luck to you. It's just stunning. I wish we could have a video component to the complaint. We do, by the way, we file these electronically, and there is a link to these videos in the complaints. So it's quite possible the judge clicks on it and probably goes, what the heck is it people doing? So anyway, that's great news on Kinsley. I did hear that we may be seeing some movement in a couple of the consulates where we have a substantial number of Kinsley folks pending. I do know, for example, that the K1s in London for they're, and certainly on our, when we get to the K1 case, they're moving them in the Milligan case. They are processing them. So I did have one case today, guys, that I'd done a consult with somebody about a month and a half ago. She's an 01 and did not join Kinsley, did not join Tate. And I got an appointment on September 16th, but she called today, and of course, appointments canceled because the London consulate canceled all their August and September appointments. And great. In fact, Greg, you found something out about this summer sessions at consulates. Do you want to share that?
Yeah. So one thing a lot of this is a piece of information I picked up in the one of the consular processing sessions at the AILA conference. But apparently, what is happening is that they are booking appointments they're booking way more appointments for non-immigrant appointments than they have capacity to do, and part of that is they're telling people who are filing for national interest exemptions and things like that to file for these appointments. But if you're not requesting an NIE and you're filing, they have every intention to cancel the appointments, a big chunk of the appointments when they're being scheduled in the first place. They're not being honest when they are telling people that there's appointment availability, that if you're booking these appointments and you're making your plans and you think you're going to an interview, there's a pretty good chance that appointment is a phantom appointment slot. And that was never their intention to have it, that they didn't change their mind at the last second. They just never intended in the first place to make those slots available.
The woman that I spoke to today, they had the next available appointment in February of 2022. Completely irrational. So she'll be moving forward on an individual complaint, but these are the types of things that we may nip in the bud in Kinsley, depending on the breadth of the judge's order. By the way, the government in Kinsley will be filing a motion to dismiss, which should be really quite interesting because I was reading a transcript, and I don't know whether it was Jacob or whether it was one of the other cases that's out there. It might have been in the Rye case. And the judge was saying, you made all these you made all these in Gomez, and you lost.
That was the Rye case.
Okay, you made all these. You're still making these arguments? How do you make these arguments? I thought that was I think it was Judge Chutkin. I thought it was a very insightful comment, Judge. You're right. They made their arguments haven't changed, and they keep losing.
Yeah.
So, I don't know what you call it other than bad faith, which hope that's what it's called. All right, let's look at the. We want to talk about Go because we are now waiting on the government's response in that case. That is due, I think, a week from Friday, if I'm not mistaken, is the government's response to our motion for summary judgment / their reply to their motion to dismiss. Did I get that right? I might get them wrong. And then our briefing is done in Go on July 6th. And then we have oral argument in front of Judge Maynard, who I think loves arguments, on July 13th. So we're gearing up for that bet and go, which is DV 2021. That appears to be the first hearing on a preliminary injunction, I think. I'm not really that and it looks like a lot of the other judges are looking to Judge Mehta for this. Now, we did not file Go as a class action. And we didn't file it as a class action because we wanted to make sure that our plaintiffs were protected. There is a class action pending. Well, not pending yet. There's an invitation from a federal court judge to amend a request for class certification out in California. We're not involved in that case. We're not putting our plaintiff in that case. We feel that we have a very strong case in front of Judge Mehta, and we're going to do everything possible to make sure our plaintiffs get their DV 2021 visas. But at the same time, we are also requesting reservation of all of the unused DV 2021 numbers because of massive bad faith by the Department of State. I'm not sure that Judge Chutkin, I was reading her, kind of the status conference that she had. I'm not sure she really understood that this is truly bad faith. This is not, the first 5 months, they were operating under the impression that blah, blah, blah. No, they literally ignored a prior court order when they could have been processing these cases. And, shout out to those that did the Rye case because they had some stats there. I think it was Rafael Arena had great stats that, they were only processing 5% compared to previous years of the DV lotteries. And keep in mind, DV 2020, they also slow walked from October on under orders from Trump. No doubt about that. So to compare it to the 2019 numbers, the last legitimate year for DV 2021, you would see just this massive drop off in comparison to the immediate relative cases they were doing. So, and to date, it appears that they have, from April 14th until June 2nd, they interviewed 1,600 people. 1,600 people in five and a half weeks, 6 weeks. I mean, it's really bizarro. It's bizarro land.
The other thing that they said that I think is it's just going to be belied by the actual record is that they claim that ever since this lottery opened October 1st, that KCC has been processing cases and accepting documents and moving cases and doing everything that they can except for sending them to the consulates because the consulates have to claim them. They actually got on the record and said that. I was so grateful that they lied on the record to a federal court judge. And yes, that's an absolute lie. The KCC refused to accept documents, told people they were closed. We have the audio, KCC, we have your audio recordings from your voicemail that say we're closed and not accepting documents. We have those, just in case you forgot that you put those on your freaking voicemail. And we will be certainly introducing those into the record and Go, because now we know where they're going to come from on their other suits. So that's kind of where we are on Go. We're in good shape. I think we're really in good shape. And any other case does not impact us. We're good to go in front of Judge Mehta. Let's talk about Milligan. I didn't check. We keep getting emails saying people getting their visas issued. I know, Greg, you're following that pretty closely, and Jeff?
Yeah, we're almost, I guess, we have very few round two left. Jeff, I don't know if our only round one person is done or back. I mean,
they're still jerking her around on the receipt of a document.
That from round one. Round three, and yeah, I mean, it's making steady progress except for
Manila, same with round two, Manila, just no.
But what are some of the countries that got approved this week? It seemed like there were 3 or 4 from London.
London, we got somebody from Rio today. Yeah. The European ones seem to be moving along.
Yeah, we had a Amsterdam, we had a Frankfurt,
Bratislava.
Yes, one of my favorite places, Bratislava.
So so things are moving.
Yeah,
so.
That's a good sign. And what's great is it's moving in Rio too. And we'll get to Rio in a second, but first of all, Manila guys, we haven't forgotten about you. That's why we're moving forward with the government on Milligan. And no, we don't know what the heck. all I can tell you is we're as frustrated as you are with the rogue nature of the consular officers. Greg, by the way, speaking of that, we learned something at this conference about consular officers and summer vacations.
Oh yeah, I never knew that, but yeah, one of our colleagues who used to be in the Foreign Service mentioned that administrative processing cases go up significantly over the summer for a simple reason that nobody would ever guess, which is that a lot of consular officers go on training trips during the summer between, I guess, assignments. And what they will frequently do is cases that they're in the middle of that they don't have time to finish. They just put them into administrative processing and give it to the next guy that's coming to replace them. So if you get administrative processing and you have no idea why you would be, there's nothing in your background or anything that suggests any problems with your case, it could be as simple as the guy just took off for a training trip and is being reassigned. So we do get a lot of people who panic when they get into administrative processing. We usually try and say that it's like, unless you know specifically what the issue is, there's not a lot we can tell you. And a lot of times it clears up. Sometimes people are in administrative processing and like 2 days later they get the visa versus, months or weeks or months. So that was just an interesting tidbit. I never knew that.
Well, I'll be looking for all my AP cases that come out in July and August, and then looking for the approvals in September and October. Fascinating. Hey, let's talk about Enunciado. We're waiting for the judge's decision in Enunciado. A lot of you had asked, what are we going to do? What are the options is a better question for the family-based cases that are left. Now, we have been following up with the government lawyer. We had a couple people scheduled for interviews, apparently over the course of the last several weeks. Remember, Enunciado was always just a complaint to get the ban for those folks lifted. It has been lifted. It was never a mandamus case. Now, if your case is pending for a really long time, and let's say you're a priority 2, you can file an individual mandamus case on that priority if it's really a long period overdue. If it's a year, 6 months, 2 years, getting an appointment. Contact one of our firms and we can help with that Enunciado individual case to be filed against the consulate. We've actually already told government counsel that will be coming, and we probably file it in front of the same judge. Try to maybe they'll get moving on the case then at that point. We got some K1s here, Jeff. I know you love K1s.
Yeah.
One thing that just always surprised me on K1s, Jeff, is how many there are.
Right.
There's a lot of them.
I'm surprised too, because I don't know about you, but I try to talk clients out of them.
I do all the time. I try to say, just go get married somewhere.
Yeah.
It's just better, faster. I'm just not a big fan of the K1.
Yeah. It used to be that there was an advantage to doing them because I-130s took forever. But, there's really not a lot of advantage unless you can't get married where you are, which for some people that is true.
You get married, you might have a problem getting married, but same thing.
But yeah, so the K1, let me just kind of group them together. All of those were filed around mid to end of April, and so we anticipate getting motions to dismiss on all of those cases starting really, I think Cairo was one of the first. It was filed.
We should be getting that shortly.
So we'll be getting those literally within days. And those motions to dismiss are not going to be a surprise. They're going to be the same thing that we've seen. And we are, obviously we have a well-oiled brief now that we can use to respond to those. And then once we survive the motion to dismiss, which I'm very, very confident that we will, then we just go straight to summary judgment at that point.
Yeah. Part of the problem with doing a preliminary injunction on smaller cases is, what's the harm? What's the irreparable, the unreplaceable harm? And that's always the hardest part of a preliminary injunction, which we simply do not have to deal with on a motion for summary judgment. A motion for summary judgment is just like the blindfolded lady of justice holding the scales. Which one moves which way? And it's a much easier standard at that point. So that's kind of where we are on these cases. So same is true in Rio. Again, they're processing in Rio. Manila, we will be going forward. The thing about their motion to dismiss is they're going to have to justify issuing no K1s other than the criteria that they laid out. And I simply don't think they can do that in front of a federal court judge.
Yeah, and we're hearing from plaintiffs that they're scheduling other K1s that are not Milligan plaintiffs. And, are they preferring other K1s over Milligan plaintiffs? All of this is anecdotal, really. We don't have any evidence of that. It's hard to go back to the U.S. attorney and say we think they're penalizing our Milligan clients without actual proof. So just know that, Manila, more than any other consulate, Manila is under the radar screen and under the light. And we're making sure that the judge knows that they're simply refusing to process these cases.
All right. Moscow, we're also working with Moscow. We just got the government lawyer's appearance. I'm going to reach out to him this week, Jeff, to find out what he knows about this case, because this is a little bit different than all the other cases because of the closures in Moscow and their limited processing capabilities. They're going to have to figure out something. These are the kind of things that federal court judges don't really want to get in the business of. Judge Chutkin mentioned this in the Rye transcript. Federal judges don't want to run a visa unit. They don't want to do that. But sometimes they have to because those that running it aren't doing an illegal job of doing so. So that's kind of where we are in Moscow. We're waiting to hear back from them. Now, Lily is not with us today because I'm going to assume she's working on the K1 litigation.
Yeah. James Hollis is helping her with that too. So K1 is... we have enough plaintiffs and that everything's good on that. And we'll be filing that shortly. I think that Lily had said as late as this morning or this afternoon that they could still take a few extra people in while they're drafting. So if you did want to be in that case, it's not too late, but I think it'll be too late. Probably, I think Wednesday or Thursday of next week is when they're planning. Well, no, Wednesday or Thursday of this week.
This week. So we'll get that in. All right, that's where we are in London. Now, the good news, what's clear is that London has responded to litigation.
Yeah.
Crystal clear that they've done that. So I think that will continue to be the case. Just EB5, this is the Fang case. We fully briefed a preliminary injunction. The government filed a motion to dismiss on Friday. Basically, it's right out of the Department of State motion to dismiss playbook. It's like they opened it up, said instead of DV 2021, put EB5. The judge did cancel oral argument, but I understand that's actually pretty routine for this judge. We have this judge is I don't know if he's a Reagan appointee or a Bush 1 appointee. He's been around a long, long time. So we don't know what he's going to do on this. We think we have a very strong preliminary injunction. Even if he denies the preliminary injunction, we have the motion to dismiss, which I know will beat. One thing, Greg, though, is did you hear anything about the EB5 program extensions at the conference? Because I didn't. No,
and they've got. It's going to be. I can promise you, it's either going to be on the last day, or it's going to go over the deadline. I have experience with this on the doctors. We've seen this a number of times over the years. The Conrad 30 program used to be on the same expiration schedule as EB5, and they will let that expiration date happen, and people go into panic mode, and then they'll extend it after the fact on there. But that's going to, it's more of a problem with EB5 because they will actually stop adjudicating cases. At that point. With the Conrad program, it's only basically people who entered the U.S. after, and they don't apply for waivers for years afterwards. But that would not surprise me if the program expires and then it goes a week or 2 weeks before they actually get around to the extension. So we're fighting for that. Unfortunately, we can't force the judge to issue a decision sooner rather than later. We know it's June 14th. We know the program expires June 30th. So for those remaining Fang plaintiffs, we're doing what we can to fight for you on that. I do have a call with government counsel this week to see what he's done. Frankly, I'm just not sure that he's done anything. His client is being very obstinate on this. This reminds me of this other terrible situation, which is perhaps, maybe not for each individual here, but from a humanitarian perspective is truly hideous. And that is the abandonment of our Afghan allies in Afghanistan with our departure.
and the Department of State's literal intransigence in adjudicating special immigrant visas for the translators and our other allies there. I mean, they should. I mean, I don't know what the hell Biden's doing or thinking about this, or even Blinken are doing about this. They should be airlifting the people on 10 flights a day to Guam.
Yeah.
And then processing. It's outrageous.
They can give them parole documents and give them and let them wait it out here in the U.S. They do not need to do it. They do not need to waste time at the consulates, which aren't functioning anyway.
You know, and this is
it is a scandal, in my opinion.
Oh, it is. This is awful. I mean, this would be like literally like we abandoned our allies in Vietnam, and then had to pay penance for years later from these terrible refugee camps in Thailand and other parts of Southeast Asia because of our allies that we left behind there.
There will be a refugee crisis in Pakistan. With people fleeing Afghanistan afterwards.
Or Iran. I mean, they're going to go to one of those two countries, and it's going to be just hellaciously terrible. Truly, it's not an embarrassment. It is horrible. It's horrific. Shame on you, Joe Biden. So there, I've said my piece for today. On the go, I every day I get 2 or 3 emails and about 4 direct messages from people. Save DV 2020. I would love to save DV 2020.
Spam.
We have briefed the issue. We've already won key issues on that. We think we're going to win more. And maybe everybody else should have just agreed with me and had the hearing on July 13th. I'm just saying. I think that's what I'm going to get you. I think Greg said this earlier. I bet you there's a hearing scheduled that morning on DV 2020 after our hearing before the hearing in the afternoon. Seems to me that's where you are. So no, there's no news, and there likely will not be any news until the end of July. That's what I anticipate Judge Mehta will issue a decision by, which is the end of July. Now, I did want to bring this last case up because we are still taking plaintiffs on this week. Greg, do you recall when our deadline is for
the 21st?
July 1st?
June 21st.
June 21st. So that's next Monday night. So here's the deal. At our conference, Charlie Oppenheim, who you all know from Chat with Charlie on YouTube, said that there will be at least 120,000. At least. He doesn't know for sure because USCIS doesn't tell him the numbers. 120,000 rollover, and that the family-based numbers wouldn't increase from 225. So we're going to lose, for sure, 100%, 120,000 EBs that are destined almost exclusively, Greg, unless I'm wrong, for Indian nationals with pending adjustment applications, right?
Yeah. Almost
Exclusively. So if you are upset about per country quotas, you should be really pissed about USCIS. We're pissed about USCIS. And that's why we're bringing this litigation. Now, we're going to file this along with either a TRO or a preliminary restraining order because we think there is irreparable harm here. One of the things I saw from the conference was that in the first quarter of the year, USCIS only adjudicated 19,000 adjustment applications in EB2 and EB3 out of 250,000, 60 is what they were given. So if they kept that up, that means there's probably 160,000 EB numbers that are going to waste away.
Yeah.
We can't sit idly by and let that happen. Now, this is great. This is unprecedented, right? Nobody's done this before.
Yeah. Yeah. And, obviously, the social media people, folks go bananas on it. And there was there's a lot of Twitter lawyers out there that are, that have second guessed us on this. But we think that, given what we've litigated previously, we think that given that it's an unprecedented situation and also just the need to, basically bring a lot of attention to this particular problem, that this litigation is necessary. And, at best, we're going to win and we're going to get these numbers reserved. And at worst, we will have made a point to the administration and hopefully shame them into doing what's necessary politically, even if we don't win with the litigation. But we think we have a good case.
You know, the government's going to, we already know what the government's going to argue. They're going to argue, well, you can't reserve numbers, which we know is not true because we reserve numbers in the Gomez case and other cases have been reserved. So one, we know it's legally, at least at the district court level, legally possible to do. Two, they'll say, well, you can't force us to these numbers, you don't lose them because they go to family. Well, our answer to that is, well, they don't, because of the way family's structured. They're designed to disappear.
Right.
It's a little sleight of hand, but it's designed to disappear. So
and I think this case is way stronger than the DV case because the whole purpose of this rollover system was to preserve visas so that they don't go to waste.
Right.
If they're not used in one category, make sure that they get used in another category. So that was congressional intent.
Yeah, there's plenty of congressional language on that as well.
Well, the idea was if the demand was soft in one category, that it would go to the other category where the demand was stronger. In this case, the demand was, there was never any softening demand. It was just an inability for the government to actually adjudicate the cases. What I'm a little concerned, well, I'm very concerned about is that we're going to see a repeat for the coming fiscal year. And this is, and basically we're going to end up losing another 200,000 or, green cards. That between this year and next year, the dent that this could have put into the green card backlogs for India, I mean, I don't know if it would have cleared out the whole backlog, but it would do a major job in clearing it out too. And then politically, it becomes a lot easier to deal with the country caps issue and all the fighting the food fight that we've had over the last couple of years on that issue has to do with the scarcity issue. If these numbers were all used and we can get the backlogs for Indian nationals down to like 2 or 3 years, then it's not going to be that hard to be able to come up with solutions in Congress where everybody is basically, treated nobody's suffering in terms of actually going from like no wait to a 10-year wait, that everybody basically has a relatively short wait with that. But that depends on these numbers staying in the employment-based side. So this litigation is really important.
You heard Anderson, if you're out there, write us an article, a really good article.
Yeah, that would be great. We could love your research, Stuart, as cited in our complaints. Think about this. If let's say it's 140,000 this year, next year it's going to be at least that, unless they make massive changes at USCIS. You're talking 300, maybe 350,000 visas. Mm-hmm. I mean, that's a huge chunk of the backlog numbers that we're talking about.
Yeah.
It certainly also moves the dates forward. That's the other thing it does. What Charlie talked about at the conference was, I'm not really going to move the dates much because there's a demand. The demand is there, but we know the visas are there. So you're not going to see this massive 3-year jump. If they adjudicated the cases, instead of 2013, 2016, you'd be in 2019. I mean, this massive jump forward would be possible. So this is a big piece of litigation. We urge you to join it. If we're successful, and we really believe we will be successful. And we're talking, the other thing we're asking for is them to adjudicate your adjustment now. It's a mandamus action. It's not just a declaratory judgment action. It's a mandamus action because their other point is it is not reasonable that it takes 1 to 3 years to adjudicate an adjustment application. It's just not reasonable. Here's the other thing I learned at the conference from Ali Mayorkas. And I don't know if you guys caught this, but he was talking about the processing times that appear on the website and what those mean. And he let slip that the bottom end of the range of dates on that is the median time it takes. So it's not the quickest time. It's the 50th percentile. And the second date on there is the 95th percentile. So for example, California says an adjustment takes 16, the median time, to 65 months. Some poor soul has its case pending for 5.5 years or more. So that's not what your case is going to take. And he even conceded those dates are not realistic. So I've got that on tape from the head of DHS saying these dates are not realistic and they are unreasonable. So the other thing is to force USCIS back into a 7, 8, 10, 5-month processing time for adjustment of status. Sure.
I've always been somewhat of a cynic as far as what the date, when they switched to this date range versus what they used to have, which was they used to have a date, a specific date. I think that they got tired of getting sued in mandamus cases by people saying, this is the date that you say is a normal processing date. I'm 90 days past this. Give me my visa on there. And I think they went to these outrageous ranges so that people would be discouraged from litigating, thinking, well, they say it takes 5 years for this case. I'm only pending 2 years. So I guess I don't have a case on there. And I think a lot of lawyers basically bought into that, thinking that that they don't have good litigation because of that.
It's typical government speak, right? They reframe it as, judge, this is what's normal. These are our normal processing times. And that's not the standard. It doesn't say that you have to have a normal delay. It says you have to have a reasonable delay. Right. And they're certainly not reasonable, even if they're normal.
Yeah, I think it's great litigation. So I'm excited to get that going. Let's have a look at some questions here. This is one that's come up a lot. We kind of touched on this at the beginning. Let's be clear. We are not involved in the Jacob case.
Just watching.
We're not involved in the Good Luck case. We're not involved in the Rye case. We have no decision-making authority. We have no part in those cases.
This is what I will say, though, about this. If you read the decision from Judge Chen, and this is just my opinion, I think he signals in that opinion that he is willing to consider a class action, and also that he's willing to consider, he said his starting point will be Judge Mehta's decision in Gomez reserving visas, which says to me he may be open to reserving visas too. So I think Morrison has a tough decision to make about what he's going to do with his various cases, because whatever he does, could jeopardize another case. So I'm a little bit concerned about this, because I think I like what Judge Chen had to say in his decision.
So, but the Go plaintiffs, we're not combining with anybody. Now let me just tell you how class actions work. Generally speaking, if the judge says, well, the class is all DV 2021 lottery selectees and their derivative beneficiaries. Everybody in a class action, everybody has the right to opt in or opt out. So the Gomez class, if you have a right to opt in, which means if you're DV 2020 and you haven't been interviewed, you should be registering as a class member on the website for the Justice Action Center for Gomez 2020. The same thing would have to be here. If there is a class certified, then Curtis would be the lead lawyer for the class and those that want to participate in the class. But you don't have to participate in the class. You don't have to. You can do your own lawsuit, and that's where we are with the Go case. All right, this is good. Let's see. A lot of the Go questions, which we answered early on in the case. We did have a client today email me. He just got his visa, and that was in Gabe Paris for the DV 2021 lottery. He's not French to participate, but yeah.
He was one of our Go plaintiffs?
Our Go plaintiffs.
Yeah, nice.
Now we know these things. One, the government has a list of all our clients. We know that for Go, and their case numbers, but all the information they need. Two, we know they're going through the KCC to separate out these files. And three, we know the KCC apparently doesn't schedule interviews. They just, according to this dude who testified in front of Judge Chutkin, no, they just collect. All they do is collect documents. They don't do anything else. That's all I got. I mean, it's like, what is KCC? They're like a mail room for the Department of State. Nobody believes that, by the way. So obviously, if you're a Go plaintiff, you should be sending all your documents to the KCC right now. You should be doing fill out your DS-260 and get it in. That's what you should be doing, according to the dude who testified in Judge Chutkin's court. All right. Let's see. Oh, K1, yeah, the government had to respond by June 12th. I don't think that was the case. Is that the case? I don't know. Why don't you check on Pacer and check?
I'll look it up right now. This is the K1 Egypt. I assume that's the Cairo case.
Cairo case, yeah. Normally you and I get notices.
Yeah.
So I haven't gotten anything. But there should be a timeline on there in which they were due to answer by, because it's 60 days from the day the complaint was served. I just don't remember in April when it was served. Okay. Is it important to put the date of birth? I didn't mention it when I signed up. If you got your case number and your name and your country, that's all we needed. Thank you very much. Here's my favorite argument today. You are my immigration Xanax. Thank you, LMM. I don't know what to say to that. That was great. London. So if you're a K1 London plaintiff, just hold on. The complaint's going to be filed. And then once it's served, you're welcome to email the consulate and say, by the way, I just sued your butt. Don't use those words. All right. I don't know the name of the case yet. And say, I'd like to be interviewed. Please schedule me so we don't have to wait for the judge to order you to schedule me. I'd like to be done. I don't know which case Hassan is referring to. Let me explain how this works for the government. So the Department of State has their own lawyers, in-house lawyers that tell them what's legal and what's not legal, who then interact with the lawyers from the Department of Justice, who represent them in federal court. So the Department of State lawyers talk to the Department of Justice lawyers, who then say what the Department of Justice lawyer told them to say. So presumably, the Department of Justice lawyers said, we're going to lose this case because we always lose these cases. What do you want to do? We want you to fight. Okay, I'll fight. But what are you going to do? Why don't you go ahead and interview these people? And then we don't have any word. We don't get. Jeff, do you get any? I don't get a report card from the government lawyers. They don't tell me also.
No.
So there you go. Let's see.
Jeff, can you find out the answer?
So this is great. Now, Sonia, we would like you to email us a summary of this conversation with the consulate, because this is directly contrary to what the dude testified to from the State Department in front of Judge Chutkin, which is KCC has nothing to do with scheduling. Those are his exact words. So if you can get us something about your communication with the consulate, and you can email me or Aaron, would be the best two people to email, we would love to have that, because again, it puts light to what they're talking about, especially if it's an email from the consulate. That would be particularly helpful. So Eli, thank you. This is what I saw as a question here. If you are a Jacob plaintiff, we cannot advise you on your legal rights and options because we are not your lawyers and someone else is. So if you're looking for legal advice, you should talk to your lawyers about that. It would be improper for us to interfere with that attorney-client relationship, and we will not do so. Okay? We will not do so. Let's see. Again, we don't know what the consulate. Now, so I described Department of Justice lawyer, Department of State lawyer, the visa office. This is the head of the embassies, and then the consulates and embassies. So the government lawyer is 3 steps removed from the embassy. He's not talking to the embassies. And we don't know if the Department of State lawyers are even telling their clients, the visa office and the guys at the consulates interview. In fact, it's quite clear that the visa office is telling them not to interview DV 2021 people by making them priority 4. Jeff, any luck on that PACER inquiry on Cairo?
Yeah, interestingly enough, they're correct. The judge's order, the summons, it indicates response due for all federal defendants by June 12th.
Ooh, I think it's time for a, what do you think?
I will call Mr. Walker. This is J.H. Walker III.
Oh, I was going to say, maybe you could just file a motion for a judgment on the pleadings and just get a judgment and walk away. I think somebody forgot the deadline. That's what I think happened.
Mm-hmm.
And so why? Let me just ask it, because people are going to, why would you call the government lawyer? Why not just go for it and say, you lost, you didn't respond in time?
Because we have to deal with those government lawyers on all of our cases, and something like that. If I missed a deadline by 2 days, I would want the courtesy of a phone call saying, you may have missed this, and telling them I won't object, because here's the deal. I think we're going to win this case anyways. So, to me, it's not worth pissing off the government. And so that, if this case goes forward, for example, then the government's not willing to deal with us in the future, because I'll tell you, the judge is going to give tons of deference to the government.
He's going to reopen the case. I mean, he's going to, so it's just not worth it. So
if the government called and said, Judge, we have other cases and we'd like a 2-day extension, we'll have the brief. The judge is clearly going to grant the extension over our objection. So, I could file a motion for default judgment. I could file a motion for judgment on the complaint. I just don't know strategically. I mean, I think we would have to talk about it after deciding strategically.
That's the right call. Christopher, I love Christopher. What is the objective policy for the 4 levels of visa adjudication? There are none.
It's an arbitrary and capricious policy.
It is.
Exactly.
What I love about the discovery is there's no explanation about the objectives of the policy. They just aren't. Greg, you're muted.
They've essentially done rulemaking, here with these policies that come out, and the government doesn't just get to issue rules and big policies without going through a process of getting comment and explaining themselves and getting feedback from the public, as opposed to just pushing out these orders. And that's one of the issues that is at stake in these cases.
There is somebody said, what do you think about the new bill HR 3548, and will it affect Go plaintiffs? HR 3548 is a bill to, quote, authorize issuance of visas and admissions of certain aliens and derivatives who are selected to apply for diversity visas but unable to issue such visas or be admitted to the United States as a result of certain presidential proclamations and for other purposes. Basically, it's to recoup the numbers from the previous 3 years for the DV lottery. It has one sponsor, Richie Torres from New York.
No, it's got more.
It's got more now?
It's got 28
co-sponsors.
But it's all Democrats. That's the problem on it.
Yeah, there's no Republicans on here, is there?
Yeah, I mean, let me just tell you, folks, about legislation in general. If you don't have 10 Republicans in the Senate, your bill is not going to move on there. Now, it doesn't have to be 10 co-sponsors from the Republican Party in the Senate, but generally speaking, if it's all Democrats on a bill, the Republicans in the Senate are not going to be interested in it. So that's the problem with this bill. Now, there are some bills that are, I think, going to cross that, and that'll be interesting. But this is not one of the ones I think that probably has that chance.
All right, so Go plaintiffs, some Go plaintiffs, at least a couple that I'm aware of, the consulate asked for proof you were a Go plaintiff. You all have been sent an email.
I got 2 of those today.
With the redacted copy of the complaint. So you can use that complaint. And yes, it's a long complaint because there's 900 plaintiffs or something like that. So you'll find your name there. All right. Let's see. Hey, we are all, this is Liz Switzerland. You're like a Swiss watch. Always on top. I like that. That's something about the trains. Let's see. A lot of these in Go we answered. Let's see. I'm trying to go through as many as I can here. Let's see. When Jeff starts talking, it feels like he is somewhere close. Close to my heart. I don't know what that means, Jeff, but you better tell Kirby about that. Tell Kirby about that. Let's see. We did answer what's a likely timeline on the Kinsley decision. My guess would be probably July is my guess. Might be in August, but the judge, I frankly, I think that's a very easy decision for him to write. All right, this is something interesting that we did not know. Thank you, Cody. Over 1,000 K1s at the embassy and 10,000 approved K1s at the NBC. Wow. There's a different word than wow.
But I mean, this is the accumulation of a year and a half that they haven't done any work.
Yeah, I mean, it's just wildly unacceptable. That's why we filed a lawsuit against Manila. So we'll figure out what the judge is not going to be. He's going to hear, you have 10,000 cases. My first question was, why? Why do you have that many? Not why do so many people marry Filipinas? All right, that's not the question. Why have you not processed these cases? Why have you not found a way around processing these cases? Why have you not done something to ameliorate this? These are not brown folders. These are human beings.
Well, I mean, the other thing is that it's not like all the other consulates haven't been doing the exact same thing as Manila. Manila is on its own at this point as far as what they've done. We've had other consulates that have had similar populations of K-1 visas, London and Rio in particular, that have figured out a way to at least, they're at least approving our plaintiffs in those cases, but they're moving slowly through everybody else. Manila is just basically on strike.
Yeah, I mean, that's why we sued them. Again, we don't follow every single consulate in the world as far as what their processing times are. I can tell you that a recent case that I personally had in Madrid with one of my clients, it took about 4 months to get an appointment, but they didn't cancel it. They gave her the visa. So 2 months does not seem abnormal to me in Madrid. There's issues in Spain, is what I understand. Issues in Spain. Let's see. How do you sign up for the lawsuit for H-1B abuse? You would go to this onboarding page and click on that and go to the H-1B lottery abuse page. That's where you'd find out about that. All right, let's see. And part of the goal is to file by Friday. That's right. There's a lot of other questions on here we've already answered. I like this one. My friend was switching jobs right to appear at H-1B lottery. Both the old company. He didn't win the lottery, though. Can he join as a plaintiff? Yeah, we'd love to have him as a plaintiff. Mm-hmm. The question is, what if you applied 12 times for the lottery, 30 times for the lottery? Now that everybody knows the secret on getting picked, Greg, I'm going to ask you, next year, if the rule's not changed, how many applications will there be for the lottery?
A lot.
500,000? A million? I mean, now that you can game the system, why not do it?
Chuck, I think you and I were both practicing in the early 90s. And do you remember DV?
Oh yeah,
applications.
Yeah, but running
or they used to let you file as many as you wanted.
Oh no.
And they would. I mean, it was the dumbest setup that they had, but basically they were just, I think, millions of applications.
Well, get that.
Lottery, and it kind of reminds me of like those old days of
one of our dear friends had part of his practice was he'd fly to DC on April 1 or May 1 or whatever the application, October, and he'd literally bring cases, like copy box cases full of paper applications, and he'd go to different mailboxes around the outside of Foggy Bottom in Washington, D.C., and insert thousands of applications in the lottery. Yeah. This is no different.
If you let people game a system, they will game a system.
Yeah, absolutely. So that's what we're going to put a stop to. All right, everybody, it's been a great day. By the way, if you want to watch, if you want to watch, hold on a second.
So you took my master class and learned to make egg toast.
Whoa, hold on. I clicked on the link by accident. I did not know that the link was publicly available for Secretary Mayorkas's. Yeah. You might want to take a look at this because it was definitely something worth watching. Definitely worth watching. This is Secretary Mayorkas and the question and answer. I think the boldest thing that I've ever seen a government official do, immigration, bar none. Even testifying in Congress, this was bar none because it was just him. And by the way, a terrible background. He wouldn't get a very high rating on Room Rater. All right. He'd maybe get a 3, 2 flags. I mean, you care about it. I mean, you could probably do a better job than that. Maybe a Statue of Liberty in the background, something like that. So thank you, everybody. You guys hang around. We'll talk for a minute afterwards.
Great.
Monday, tomorrow. That's you, Jeff, tomorrow? Is that? Oh, no, it's great. Tomorrow at 7. Wednesday at noon Central.
Yep. No, noon Mountain.
Noon Mountain. I'm in West Central. That's Greg. I'll be at 2 Eastern, which is the same time on Wednesday.
I'm thinking about changing mine to the afternoons.
Yeah, you'll get Europe. You know, you got Asia now. If you're in the
Thinking about it. I mean, we get a nice crowd every week, but I'm thinking about changing it just also it's easier for the lawyers too.
I like the afternoon, and then Friday will be we're actually every day at 2 o'clock, but Friday we'll have my partner out. That'll be a lot of fun. All right, everybody, have a wonderful night. We'll see you soon.
Bye-bye.